go. All right, so I'm just going to quickly start with a brief outline of what we're going to be covering. But firstly, I'd also like to say thank you all for joining. It's super exciting to share this, and this is one of the first webinars that I'm actually doing on the app. Mostly I've been doing trainings, myself and my business partner, Nathaniel, have been doing trainings with folk on how to use that. But this is the first actual webinar which goes a little bit into the details behind the cognitive skills and how using the app can impact your cognitive skills, and then how to actually structure your video analysis to really engage and get the most out of it. So thank you all for joining, and thank you, Paula and Sarah, for also initiating and all the organizing on your sides. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Yeah, great. I'm also just going to make another request over here. So if we can have the videos off, and then also the if you can put your audio off, that'll be helpful as well, just so that we don't have any background sound. And then if you do have any questions, if you can just pop in and, put your audio back on, feel free to interrupt me at any point if you need clarification on any of the things that I'm talking about. And it's a little bit difficult to, just from my side, to actually see if there's signals of questions coming up. So your just popping in and interrupting me would be really helpful, and I will try and make room for questions. Okay, so jumping into the webinar and what we're going to be covering. So we've got an hour and a half, and there's quite a bit to cover. So I'm going to be going over all of these areas, but unfortunately not being able to go into them very deeply. We're going to be covering like basics on all of them, and I'm going to try and spend the most time in actually having a look at ways to use the app for video analysis. So we'll start off by just going over understanding cognitive processes, perceptions, and skill development, then contextualizing skills development within the process work framework. So having a look at what I mean when I say skills developments and the different kind of skills that we're trying to work on. Then advanced use of the DreamMaker IO tools. And in this section, I'll actually be going to the app and working with the app on this and showing you things. Then going over a process-oriented approach to video study. And then finally, freeing creative insight and intuitive flow, and really how to work with the app to do that. So just a note about myself and why understanding cognitive processes, perception, and skills development really came up for me. So I come from a sporting background, an elite sporting background, and I was a goalkeeper in field hockey, and we needed to train our visual performance to actually be able to see more on the field, react quicker and respond quicker to what was happening. So we had specific tools and methods that we would use to focus on our visual performance. So not only focusing on the skills, the physical skills of how to play the game and how to be a goalkeeper, but also training our visual perception. And it was coming from this background and coming into process work where we have to look at signals all the time and have our audio perception and visual perception aware of signals, that it came to me that there can be ways, and there are ways, to actually really focus on the minutiae of skills development. So how to train our audio perception, how to train our visual perception, how to train then the different skills that we use as process workers. So that's a little bit of background context into this. So what am I talking about when I speak about cognitive processes, perception, and skills development? So brain processes used to take in, understand, store, and retrieve information. This includes those used to focus, think, reason, and make decisions. So it's a broad definition, and we'll drill down a little bit deeper into that. So what happens when we are perceiving things? We have our sight, our hearing, our touch, our taste, our smell, our senses, and we have these receptors which feed in to what we call our sensory memory. Then we perceive these senses, and we transfer it to a working memory. And in the working memory, there's a process of organization and retrieval of long-term memory and knowledge that comes in. So let me slow down a little bit as I go through this. So we can only take small amounts of incoming information in at a time, and the brain decides what is important and what is not important. All right, and once it's decided that something is important, it takes it into the working memory, and the working memory organizes this information, and it juxtaposes it. It brings in the sensory memory, and it brings in knowledge that we already have, and puts them together and rearranges all of this information to help us make sense of it. In this whole process, the working memory and new information that comes in needs to be sufficiently connected to what we already know and what we already recall in order to transfer it to long-term memory. So a simple example of this is, if you're studying history and you need to recall data and everything, you memorize those dates. In the process of memorizing it, there's a whole lot of repetition. And if you associate those dates with other things that you already know, then you start to get a fuller picture and you start to remember those dates easier. Now, the thing about all of this is that the information that we get in through our sensory memory and all of the reflections and understandings that we have in our working memory, it isn't transferred into long-term memory. If it isn't transferred there, it's forgotten. So there's this process that we go through of making the connections, and then as we make those connections, we transfer them to long-term memory. So just defining perception, what I mean by perception in this previous slide over here. So this area over here, perception, where sensory memory is transferred to working memory. Perception is recognizing what you're sensing. Okay, so you have something coming in through your sight, hearing, touch, taste, smell. You then have that coming in and you recognize it as something that you've already previously defined. So if it's the color blue, or if it's a smell, or in our case as process workers, we learn to recognize signals. So we see something and we perceive it and we learn to define exactly what it is. And that process of perception involves the working memory and the long-term memory coming into play. So bringing it back in over here, there is a process over here of rehearsal. So the more we rehearse what we are seeing and defining what we are seeing and differentiating what we are seeing, the more likely it is for that memory and that information to be stirred in long-term memory. So going back to sport, that would be continuously training a certain movement over and over again. You training your synaptic pathways, and you're opening synaptic pathways to see things. There's a continuous rehearsal process, and the more that you rehearse something, the more likely, again, you are you're going to have to transfer something to long-term memory. All right, I'm just going to pause there at the moment. So it's quite a bit of information in a short period. I'm just wondering if there are any questions. Okay, I'm going to assume the silence is...
No, but yeah. I'm glad you're pausing. It was just like taking it in. So
okay.
Yeah, no question there.
Okay, great. All right, so let me go over here. All right, so what I was talking about, working memory, rehearsal, and training. All right, it's essential when we're processing new information to actually consciously connect it to what we already know. So there's that part of rehearsal, there's a part of reflection, retrieving what we already know, to memorize it. And again, if you think about other things that you have studied, you sit down with a book, you sit down with whether it's your maths or you're learning a new language, there is a conscious process that you're going through to connect the new information that is coming in to what you already know. And again, as I said, sufficient rehearsal transfers knowledge to the long-term memory. And the idea is that if you practice frequently and you're taking in new information in frequently over a period of time, and then shortly after, so you do the rehearsal frequently, then you wait a while, and then you redo the same practice or training again shortly thereafter, and then you can wait a longer period of time and reactivate that memory and that thinking again later. That process actually helps to store it in long-term memory. So in a nutshell, you do something and you train it maybe 4 or 5 days in a row. Then the next week you'll maybe do it 2 days, and the next week 1 week, and then you have this, it gradually migrates to your long-term memory in that way. So I have read in some places that to create lasting change in your cognitive skills, you want to do something 3 to 5 sessions for 40 minutes per week. But it also depends on what you're doing and how you're doing it. That's not to say that you need to do video analysis 3 to 5 times a week, but as a process worker and as a training process worker, you may want to be working with clients or exercising those thinking skills and exercising viewing signals, identifying audio, the things in the audio channel, the visual channel, doing that a few times a week to help practice and get that information in. All right, so just to go over some different kinds of cognitive skills and processes, you get visual skills, audio skills. In both visual and audio skills, you get a process of discrimination, which is being able to identify and discriminate one thing against another thing. You also have a process of recognition, so seeing something that you've already seen and then recognizing it, so retrieving something from long-term memory and recognizing it again. For your visual skills, you've got a combination of what you're centrally focused on as well as your peripheral vision. So if you think about that, if you're working with a group or even with a client, you may be focused on a certain movement they are doing, or an area, a hot spot where 2 people are talking in the group process, but there is a lot of other stuff going on. So what can you focus on, but then what can you also see in your peripheral vision and pick up in your peripheral vision? We've got different kinds of attention, so sustained, selective, divided, and flexible. Sustained is a kind of attention which we usually talk about focus, being able to focus on something for a long period of time. Selective, you can think about selective as I'm hearing something in the audio channel, so I'm focusing there, but then there's a movement and I switch my focus to the movement channel. Divided would be kind of holding something simultaneously, 2 things simultaneously. So you're listening to the content of what is being said, but at the same time, you're thinking about levels, you may be thinking about ghost figures that are present or long-term patterns in the clients. And then flexible attention is just simply your fluidity, be able to switch between different areas that you focus on while still retaining what you have seen and what has already happened. So we've got our language skills, naming, labeling, verbal memory, processing speed. I'll pick that up a little bit later, but it's to do specifically with how quickly you can recognize, how quickly you can discern and discriminate what you're seeing and then respond to that. Then you get your higher thinking processes. I've just got here comprehension and patterns, but there are a lot more higher thinking processes that come in to bring all of these other skills together. Then you've got physical skills, movement, direction, a sense of balance. So these are all different kinds of cognitive processes and skills, and it's definitely, there are more than what I've mentioned over here, but this is to give you an idea of some of them, and specifically some that are that we'll pick up on later. So cognitive processes, skills, and perception can be trained. So the example that I was giving where I was an elite athlete, I was training my visual performance, I was actually training my peripheral vision. I was training my processing speed. I was training how I was able to see the curvature of the board. It was all to do with that ability to train our perception. For those of you that have worked or are aware of neuroscience and neuroplasticity, you'll also be aware that the state of our brains is not fixed. It's actually plastic and it's fluid. And training your cognitive processor skills and perception takes advantage of this fluidity. So, I mean, this plasticity. So if you're feeling a little bit disheartened, there's something that you're struggling to pick up, it doesn't mean that you're never going to be able to pick it up. You can train your mind to pick up these things. Okay, so contextualizing skills development. All right, let me pause over there. Any questions? Okay, great. So contextualizing skills development within the process work framework. What skills are we looking at training? So firstly, process work, super signal based. So primarily when it comes to signals, we're having a look at our audio and visual perception, our ability to discern and see sensory grounded information. Attention, naming and labeling. So this is especially as we're starting out, our ability to focus, keep our focus, maintain our attention for a whole session, but then also to be able to switch to different items and thinking about different things while we are with the clients and not simply sit there and get mesmerized them or lose track of things. Also naming and labeling things. So we see something, how do we name it? How do we label it and give it meaning to ourselves so that we can compare it to things that we already know? All right, channel and level awareness. Channel and level awareness are quite vast. Thinking about all the different, your audio, your visual, movement, relationship channel, world channel. Then you've got your level awareness, sensory, consensus reality, dreamland, essence. You've also got your social levels. So what is personal to the individual, what is happening in the more the relationship channel, what is systemic. So we need to be able to train our skills and train our awareness to be pretty fluid and multifaceted in seeing and holding and retaining information from these different areas. We also need to have a personal awareness. So again, specifically process work, it's very subjective, having a personal awareness. What is alive for ourselves? What is happening for the clients in their signals? And then the environments and world channels. Processing speed, reactions and responses. So what I'm referring to over here is while you're picking up signals and you're picking up different things that are happening in the session, how fast are you able to actually firstly become aware of what is coming in? So actually have a perception and be able to define, okay, that was a double signal. Something over there happened, it was a double signal. It was in the movement channel. Okay, now how do I respond to that? And the sooner that we can actually process something and perceive it and define what it is, the quicker we are able to have a response to that. And when it comes to responses, I'm talking about whether it's an intervention, whether it's simply taking what you're seeing and back pocketing it for later use. You might be in your mind creating a whole clustering and pattern of things that are happening with the client. Is there a question over there? No. Okay, I see a few more people have come online. Welcome to everyone.
I'm James. Hello.
Thank you. Yeah. If those that are coming in online, if you can, we're trying to keep videos off to work with bandwidth. Also, if you can mute your mics.
Okay.
All right. So those are the process. Okay. So then we've got our process work specific thinking skills. So this is coming into your higher thinking skills. How do you think about process structure? How are you identifying signals and creating a hypothesis for your process structure? What is your channel analysis? How are you clustering and and creating patterns for the different things that you are seeing. The interventions you are making, how do you identify and know what kind of intervention you're making, or having a look at the positive and negative feedback of that intervention. Then there are also process work concepts like being dreamt up, having an awareness of shared edges, noticing that a hotspot has just happened, detecting atmospheric changes. All of these are skills that we are working to train within ourselves as process workers. And I imagine that you might yourself be thinking of quite a few at the moment that haven't been listed over here. So to continue that, now really getting into training ourselves as counselors, and I say training ourselves, and I'm also aware that some of you are teachers and facilitators and training others out there. So training counselors or process workers, training usually happens in two ways. And here when I say training, I don't mean getting the knowledge on board. I mean actually training and practicing the skills. So the first way is by doing. So we are practicing what we are doing, and either we are working with clients in an internship, or we are working with peers, whether that's on a residency, in a seminar, or working one-to-one with peers that you're surrounded by. The other way is through live supervision, and live supervision is kind of this hybrid where you're learning by doing, but you're also having your supervisor and you're having direct feedback and input from someone on the outside. And the second way we then train is by reviewing what we've already done. So again, live supervision here is critical in that your supervisor can see and review what you're doing in the moment. Then you have case presentation and case study, which may be relevant in an internship, or if you're working one-to-one with the supervisor and you presenting your case without video or audio. And then another way is through actual video study, where you review what has happened in the session using a video, and you may share this video with the supervisor for additional input, or you may study it by yourself, where you can study the client, you can study yourself, you can study the process structure, you can see things that you've missed. So each of these methods, I just want to say, are important. So the doing is critical as counselors and process workers. It's a path made by walking, and we learn by doing. But the process of reviewing, which involves reflection on what we've done, which involves in learning from what we've done, which involves affirming that we did make the right decision when we had a question mark about it. This is all important. Case presentation and case study is incredibly important to learn how to speak about what we what we have seen and what we are doing, to take what might be intuitive or a felt sense of how we have done things and actually name and frame it is all incredibly important. So coming into how to use DreamMaker tools to focus on skills development. So I just want to say, coming back to this slide over here, this process of reviewing video study, the video study piece, just switching now and bringing that into focus because that is what we're here to have a look at. Video study is fantastic for supervision and for that review or process. But the other part of video study, which is what I've been referring to previously, is actually training our cognitive skills, training our thinking skills in what we are doing. And it's not necessarily a review of what has been done, but it's a practice in the moment. Instead of being able to work with a live client or a live group, we can use the video, and I'm going to show you how to do this. We can use the video to slow things down and to really study, okay, what does that signal look like? What does that signal sound like? What are the different portions of paralanguage? So as I go into this, the advanced use of DreamMaker IO tools, we're going to be looking at how to really structure your approach to video analysis. So bearing in mind, is your focus over here to study a whole session and do a case presentation, or is it to actually focus on skills development? So what are you hoping to achieve? You can break things down, focusing on specific skills, whether it's process work skills or the cognitive skills, and then putting it all together. So an overall session analysis. All right. So,
sorry, Paola, I've got one question. It's Sue here.
Hi, Sue.
Yeah, just wanted to say that with the recording of this, will we also be recording the visuals that you're doing?
Yes.
That'll all be, because it's really useful. I'm really finding it interesting, but I know that I'm going to want to go back over this and just reflect on it. So I didn't know if it was just an audio recording, but it's also the visual.
Yes, it's also visual. So I'm doing a video recording, and the video recording will be shared with you.
Okay, great.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Are there any other questions? Because I'm going to switch over to the app to have a look at these different ways of structuring your approach. But does anyone need clarification on any of the things that I've mentioned so far?
Well, this is Laura. I have a question.
Hi, Laura.
When you're videotaping a session, is a client aware that there's a camera there, or does it just look like a regular room and it's built into the room?
Right, so that choice is really yours. Regarding confidentiality, definitely here in the US, and I expect in every other country around the world, you need to get client, what is the word? Your clients have to approve or have to give permission, client permission to actually do the recording.
Right.
So they should be aware. It's a very important ethical requirement that they should be aware that they are being video recorded. Then the choice is yours on how you want to bring the camera in. The camera, thinking about it from a process work perspective, definitely brings in a third party of awareness. It can make the client more self-conscious, and that does often, especially if it's a client that's not used to being video recorded, that can land up being part of the process that comes in, that, being watched. So if you have the camera less hidden, less visible, it makes that easier.
Okay. That's more where my question was, is how much of an impact is it to change the process?
Right, exactly. It's going to have an impact, and that is really going to be depending, as I say, on context, how visible the camera is, who the client is, what the process in the moment is. And again, if you're a training therapist, it's also going to have an impact on you. So those first few times when you're recording yourself, and then you watch yourself, and you have this awareness of seeing yourself, and you have an awareness that you're being watched, it all influences and can influence the process.
Thank you.
Paola, could I add something? It's Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. Yes.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, it was just that I noticed that I had before I went to video sessions, I had an edge to videoing sessions, and I had an edge to videoing myself. And so I kind of really worked on that. And so when I introduced the concept of the video in the sessions with clients, I had the camera there right from the start. Somebody advised me it was a good idea to have it physically there. And I said, that's a camera, it's not recording. But I wanted to talk to you about whether we could record and what the purpose is. And I discussed all about it. It was about the supervision of my practice. And what I have found in practical terms, actually, is that all of my clients so far, except for one, have been really fine with it. So I felt like it was quite important to work on my own edge to it first before I introduced it.
I love that you bring that in, Sarah. That's a really great point. I know that it's so tricky watching ourselves. When I started studying, that process of watching myself and getting over my own edges to what I was seeing was huge. So I really like what you're saying about first working on it ourselves. That's great. Thank you for bringing that in. All right, any other questions before I switch over? Okay, so let's see. You should now be able to see a screen that says microsignal study, Ukrainian oligarchs. All right, I'm going to assume that everyone can see it because there's no questions. So what I'm going to have a look at here is this video. I've used this as an example of studying microsignals, and this isn't a group process. It's not working with the client, but you'll get the idea of what I'm doing over here and how the app is being used over here. A little context around this, it's Al Jazeera Investigates, let me just go over here. It's an Al Jazeera Investigates piece that can be found on YouTube, and I will be sharing this piece with you through DreamMaker afterwards, in which the investigator for Al Jazeera actually confronts a Ukrainian oligarch about some lies and misinformation around how money was being sent. And what is great about the piece is that the questions and the interviewing and the confrontation happens live on camera. So you really get to explore the different things that happen for this person as he's confronted. All right, so let me bring that down again. So what I'm going to start by showing you over here, okay, so we've got, again, I'm moving this up just so that it's in good perspective. So what I've got over here is I've got a dashboard. I've defined two different dashboards, one for paralanguage and one for IQs. So IQs, it's a concept that comes in from NLP, and it's really focusing on where the person is looking. So whether they're looking up, down, left, right, and the different areas that they're looking in indicates, are they thinking about themselves, or they're looking down, are they audio construction, so they're recalling something from the past, or feeling, they imagining something, so they're having more visualization of something. So we've got these two different dashboards, and this is specifically to focus on the minutiae of skills. So we've got a video over here, and now we want to train our ability as a trainee, process worker, or counselor to actually pick up on the different cues that come in. One, we've got over here the visual channel, our own visual channel, so having a look at IQs, and the other one, paralanguage, so actually that focuses on our audio perception. And I'm just recalling, I know that there are some people online who have already seen this, so I want to apologize for the repeat in this. Yes, I was hoping to have a different video and with different stuff, but that didn't happen. So we've got this over here, two different dashboards that I'm using, and I'm going to play this for a moment. Let me just put the volume down. So what I've done over here is I've labeled different areas over here. So I'm going to fast forward. You'll notice I'm here on the right of the app, and I'm going to 30 seconds in, where this first confrontation over here happens. Let me just switch to my this IQ's dashboard. So just let me ask a question. How is the audio when I play the audio? Can you hear it?
Yes, I can hear it. Yes, I can hear it. I can hear it.
It works.
Okay,
yes, fine.
All right, great. That's good to know. So I'm going to go back to this moment over here. And you'll notice, so I'm first going to play it. Let's just go without audio. I'm going to play it. And you can have a look at the different things that is happening on this guy's face. So I'm going to replay it over here. This is the oligarch being confronted and responding to the confrontation. So I go again over there. And you see there's a whole lot happening there. So I've marked this area. Something is happening over here. There's eye movements. I've done an overall, this is a tag, that I've assigned to it, specifically having a look at eye movements. And I've also done a marker. It belongs to the interviewee. I'm going to now, so we've played it over. I've, watched this video. I've marked this session over and over, this moment's over again, and I can replay it over again. But what really comes in handy when I start using the app is that I can slow down the speed of what is happening over here. So I'm going to replay this over here. I play it a little bit slower, and you can really see the different things happening with his eyes, his mouth, the movements, the blinking, where he's looking, the swallowing. So I'll play it again. Now, the first few times that you watched this, when I replayed it, you may not have been aware of all of the different things that were happening. You may have got an overall impression, but probably the first time you watched it, it was like, well, you can see he's a little bit awkward or something's going on over there, but you're not exactly sure. What are those signals that give that off? So I can slow it down even further over here. So there's that first looking away, the blinking, frowning. He's responding something. Then you see he purses his lips, he swallows, he's looking down. Seems to swallow again. So what I've done over there, let me just pause that for a moment. This process of actually slowing down the video, when we are thinking about, or when we are having a look at our visual perception, when we first see something, we may, as I said, you may get this overall impression. But as training process workers and to train ourselves to really become aware of the signals, we first need to be able to see them. So this is that sensory data and that perception, that moment where we actually see something and we recognize it for what it is. Now, if we don't have an existing memory of something or existing knowledge of something, we're less likely to see something and more likely to discard that information. And especially in a day and age where there is so much information overflow, there tends to be a lot that we discard, or we've been socialized in a specific way, so we discard certain things. And what we're trying to do as process workers, counselors, is we're trying to open up that perception again, to widen it. So by slowing down the video like this, so you first watch it regular time and then you're slowing it down, you're giving your visual perception, your visual cognitive skills, that opportunity to really see something and to identify what it is and to notice it, so that you can start creating memories. Okay, this is, something that is, there's a looking down, there's a whole lot of action over here. I got an intuitive hit on something, but when I break it down, I can see the micro signals that come into that moment. The swallowing, the pursed lips. It's not only what is happening with the eyes. There's all of these signals that we can cluster and bring together. And when we start doing that, so that's this one process of getting this visual perception going. And then the next step after that is starting to reflect on it and write about it. So in this moment over here, I've done something, again, let me see if I can focus in. Eye movements. I've made a very brief note over here. Looks away to the right, also touches lips and nose. But I could add in further information and reflections to this. And as I do that, so let's say he's looking down and to the right, and maybe that's like something that is to do with his inner world, or he's looking straight at the camera and now he's focusing on me, but then he looks up and right and there's an imagination thing happening over there. As I label and name all of those things and I start thinking about it and articulating what is happening, making reflections, I'm building my whole working memory area. I'm really rehearsing it, I'm training it, I'm making connections to different things. I might have memories of a different moment or client where similar signals happened, or a different group process where something similar or completely different happened, but it reminds me of it. And I can start reflecting and creating connections between what I am perceiving and knowledge that I already have, And in the process of doing that, I'm creating a greater likelihood to actually retain what I am seeing. Does anyone have questions about that? I'm hoping I've explained it simply and easily enough.
I've got one, Paula. It's Caroline.
Hey. Yeah.
Hiya. I love it, by the way. It's amazing.
Great, thank you.
To be able to see in that detail, I would have missed so much. So it's brilliant. My question is just about the color you've used. Is that relevant? Does that mean you're thinking there's an inner dialogue because it's purple, or how does that work?
Okay, that's a great question, Caroline. Thank you for asking that. So one of the things that I've done with DreamMaker is it works with our cognition and our ability to organize information in a different way. The colors, so let me just go up over here. The colors of these buttons over here, I defined them the way that I wanted them so that they're relevant to me. So in a dialogue for me is this like, you know, plum purple, and imagine feeling is this this other kind of purple. I've got different things over here. You know, word repetition I've made yellow. So it basically, for me as the person that creates the dashboard, and you can do this when you create your dashboard, is you can associate colors with whatever you're seeing. And that's one way of bringing in more of yourself and more personal subjective input into the way that you're doing it. The other part of it is to actually help you categorize your information. So if all of your tags, so let me just fast forward over here. Say I want to add in, let me go, don't have an eye movement. So I want to do, there was something about an inner dialogue over here, and then, sorry, what am I doing? Different moments in the video. I've got to the end of the video, let's go over here. And I put it in a dialogue over here. Basically, they both have the same color. So in a dialogue over there, this tag, this is what I refer to as a tag. It's got the same color. All right. So it's just a matter of helping us categorize the information. And if any of you know anything about colors and how our memory and our learning is excited and enticed by different colors, this is one way of doing things to really entice us, to bring more of ourselves in, to make things a little bit more fun. So a long answer to your question, but I hope that clarifies it.
Yeah.
Can I just add something to that, Paula?
Please do.
Because what I did was I just created is it tags they're called?
Yes.
Tags? Yeah. What I did was I put all my learning edge tags the same color.
Right.
At the moment. So the things that I specifically want to focus on, I made the tags the same color just so that I could, I don't know why, but it just felt like I could always hit on, I had to make them red, hit on a red one, and so that I was focusing on on my learning edge when I was looking at the video.
All right. I love that. That's fantastic. That's really, really great. I hadn't thought about doing it in that way. And I have seen someone else who's actually working with their podcasts and their takes and their retakes using a similar color coding for their different dashboards in different areas. So thank you. Thanks for adding that. Other questions?
Yeah, quick practical one.
Yes.
It's a computer thing or a DreamMaker thing, but how do you zoom in and out so quickly?
Oh, okay. So this is a sexy Mac thing.
I have a Mac.
If I lightly double tap, it enables me to zoom into different areas. So that's the way I'm doing that. And then within DreamMaker, you've got these gutters, which are, you can bring things into different focus. And I can do the same with this gutter over here. I can make it bigger or smaller.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to move on. So this is specifically, I was focusing on my visual perception in this, what we've just done, having a look. Let's just go over to that moment again. All right. So looking specifically and trying to focus on my visual perception and then connecting what I am perceiving, the different signals I am perceiving, to my longer term memory processes and what I already know through adding notes. And that process of adding notes must not be underestimated. I can't highly recommend enough, not just tagging a video, but really adding in notes and using it as a moment to reflect on what you're seeing, on what you have done, on why you're seeing what you're seeing, what interests you about it, because that process of articulating, of putting words down, helps make everything conscious and creates a greater likelihood of you being able to then remember it and reference it in another video, or when you're sitting with a client and you see something similar happen again. Okay, so the next one over here, paralanguage. So this one over here, this dashboard goes into different, let me pause this video, different aspects of paralanguage. So we're looking at tone, speed, and tempo, word repetition, volume, gasp, a sigh, a pause. So again, what we would be doing over here is we would be playing the video, but with the volume up and actually listening to what is happening, and tagging all of those different moments. So I'm going to play this for a moment with the volume up. So if I play this, okay, I've got the speed down. Let me put the speed on regular time. So play that. So there's a moment of word repetition that happens over there, which I've labeled down over here. I'm going to play that again. Now, it may not make sense what is happening in the moment over there in terms of content because you haven't seen the whole video. But what is important to note is that this moment where there's a whole lot of word repetition is that there's a whole lot of, there's the word repetition, but while the word repetition is happening, there is a whole lot of movements, eye movements, the pursing of the lips, all of those things. So, all right, let me go slowly over here. So one part is focusing on the paralanguage, and I could, analyze everything that is happening in this video, and just simply tag tone. There's a pause, there's a sigh, there's a gasp, and really training my audio perception to pick up and notice these things. And once I've done that, the idea is now I want to bring these signals together. I want to cluster them and create patterns and have a look. And that's where this word repetition over here happens. It happens at the same time as a whole lot of visual cues. So bringing those signals together, I could potentially make a hypothesis or just gain a greater understanding. This client, there's word repetition in that moment. Something is happening over there because there's also the pursing of the lips. What does that mean? Why is there word repetition over there? So it's number one, having a look at the paralanguage, training our audio perception. And then number two, again, doing a linking. So in your working memory, linking what has happened in the audio channel with what has happened in the movement channel so that you can start clustering things and identifying patterns of behavior and patterns that are present within the session. All right, any questions around that?
Is it possible for you to repeat that last sentence? Because it felt like that really was coming together and then it's gone.
Right. So the idea is that's great. That's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to repeat things to train our working memory to get our long-term memory. And so in this case, what I was saying is we focus on the paralanguage. So that's focusing on what we are hearing. We're training our audio skills. We are focusing on what is happening in the audio channel for the client. And then we are comparing that. So we've got that, and then we're comparing it to what is happening in the visual channel. And then you can put those patterns together. You can cluster them together and get an idea, create a hypothesis, or get an understanding of a pattern that the client has. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. Thank you.
Sure. Okay.
And on a practical thing too, you have different dashboards for different channels, do you? Because I've just got two. I've got individual and group, but it looks like you've made one for every channel, or is it just for this film?
Exactly. So this is where I'm talking about really structuring your approach to video analysis and deciding what is it that you want to study, and then using different dashboards. So the whole thing about the dashboard is that it really helps focus your attention and focus what you're having a look at. If you have a dashboard here that is a generic process work one, you're not, with signals. Oh, wait, I have one over here. So this one over here, this is, I think, many of you who have the app get this. It's a generic process work dashboard, which is great if you're doing a session overview. But if you really want to study the signals, you want to, instead of having this dashboard, you want to have something that is far more refined and that focuses your area of attention and helps you focus your area of attention. And I've got over here that this is the paralanguage, the IQs, but really you can create any number of dashboards to focus on different areas. And we're speaking here paralanguage, but there's also just simply language, like what happens with negation. When is there an I statement? When is there a verb? How does the I statement reference what is primary to the client, and how does the verb reference the channel where things are happening? So I may be going a little ahead here, but I also want to give you an idea of really using the dashboards and using what is interesting to you or the area that you want to focus on to really enhance that area. Like for me, it's about taking our studying into our own hands, following our curiosity and saying, okay, I want to expand on this area. I really want to understand language breakdown in the first 5 minutes. I need to train my visual perception in certain areas, maybe not micro signals, but just simply double signals. How do I recognize them? You might have a dashboard that just has signal and double signal, only 2 buttons.
Could I ask one thing, please, Sarah, again?
Yeah.
It's just, so I'm seeing so imagine you're looking at a particular point in the video. Could I, if my learning edge was to first of all notice sentence structure, and then to work on the proprioceptive channel, and then to really connect with my own feelings, could I essentially have 3 separate dashboards available to me for the same piece of video and just go between them all depending on which part I'm wanting to look at?
Yes, absolutely.
Great.
That is exactly it. And that's one of the approaches that I recommend, is having multiple dashboards and using the dashboard that you want to focus on at one point and then using the next dashboard. And you'll notice this eye movement tag, for instance, there is no tag in these dashboards that says eye movement. So I had a different dashboard in here at some point, and it had a different tag called eye movement. Okay, but I haven't lost. So I made, I tagged this moment, but I haven't lost the tag, even though I've taken the tag away out of the dashboard. So if you analyze the same piece of video with different dashboards, you're not going to lose the data that you already have. That's a really important part of this. You'll always be able to retain that data. The app doesn't just delete it because there's no longer the dashboard there.
Paula, it's Barbara from Vancouver. Just a quick question. Are 8 tags the maximum for each dashboard?
Right, yes. Hi, Barbara. Yes, at the moment, 8 tags are the maximum for each dashboard. That might change in the future if there's a need for more tags. My thinking around the 8 tags is that it kind of makes it easier to travel around and click on the buttons. If there were more, it might make it too difficult, or it might stretch your focus too wide. So, but then you've got the other dashboards if you want to add more. Yeah.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Paula. It's Sue here again.
Hey, Sue.
I just wondered, are you going to be able to show us how you place into each of the boxes of the analysis, like the specific bit of video? Are you going to walk us through a little bit how we use the boxes and how to input like at the moment, the top box says inner dialogue for 21 seconds. How do you enter and input that information?
Okay, I wasn't intending to do that, but I can quickly show you that. Let me go to this video over here. Oh, not that one, this one here. So this is an individual session with myself and one of my peers, Elsa, when we were still students. And let me play this and put the volume down. All right, so the process of analyzing, just a moment, if I saw something, so I hit signal over there. So I've just clicked on signal. You'll notice that the video paused. So the video automatically pauses when you hit one of these buttons, and then you, let me see, where did that come up? That must have been further down. All right, signal, here it is, it came up over here, 28 seconds. So as soon as you hit one of these buttons, the area that you've, the moment that you've indexed, the moment that you've tagged in the video gets one of these associated tags. In this case, it's a signal. Now, the way that you would add data in, so I can, this is a example. So I just click on it to add in a heading so that it's easier for me to come back to it. I can add in a role. So this is, facilitator. Elsa seems to be doing something over there. Levels of reality. I'm not sure where I put that. Maybe there's something dreamland, but it seems pretty congruent. Primary, secondary, I can put primary. So these are markers. Sorry, all of these over here, these drop downs are markers, and you can define your markers. Markers are an additional a way to add metadata to each moment that you've tagged. And then I can add a channel in. So there was movements over there. I was thinking about, she's got some hand movement going over here. So I've just added some additional markers over here. And then I can say, just click on again. The way I did that was I just simply click on a node. Elsa's doing something with her hands. There's something about engagements happening over here. Engagements. So this is, again, pretty simple. So there we go. I've got a signal over there. If I then went to the end of the video, so you'll notice again, this has got a timestamp, 28 seconds, which happened at 28 seconds when I clicked on the button. I can then go to the end of the video. So this is a different, right at the end of the video, something else has been a big atmosphere change. But then I want to go to that, back to that signal example. I just simply click on play over there to get there, and I can repeat that again. So that is in a nutshell how you tag a video. So you would watch a video, and every time you see some sort of signal or event that you want to tag and then add notes to, you just simply click on the button and you can pop it in.
That's great. Thank you, Paula.
Sure. Okay. All right. So let me just for a moment go back here, having an awareness of time. So, all right. So what we've covered over here, advanced use of the DreamMaker AI tools to focus on skills development. I've had a look at different dashboards. I've briefly spoken about the markers. So these markers over here, and I'll speak about them a little bit more right now. So in this video, again, it's an individual session. I've got these markers in. And markers, you'll notice over here, this is specific to a client's therapist scenario. In this one over here, I've only got one marker, and I've called it select interview role. So I can mark whether a signal belongs to the interviewer or the interviewee. Coming back to this example over here, so we've got client, facilitator, or both. So who does the signal belong to? Again, level of reality, if it's primary or secondary, and then what channel it's in. Now, how I can use this is if I'm studying a video and I want to study myself first. So I study myself and then I study the client. But later on, I want to come back and focus just on myself. I can use these filters over here and say, okay, I want to just see myself as facilitator, and I can hit facilitator and see all of the signals. I mean, all of the tags that I have marked as facilitator. I could do the same, and I could focus on client stuff. Let me show all of that over there. You can do the same filtering. You can filter on the tags. So I want to see all of the double signals I've marked. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is a 25-minute session and I've only marked one double signal. It's a really good insight perhaps into what you're possibly missing in your analysis when you're having a look at a video. So let's go back to all of them over here, showing all. I might want to focus on, again, this is using the markers. I might want to focus on everything that is happening in the movement channel and really have a look at that. So using these signals, using the markers is one way of really, you've got your analysis. Now you want to draw a little bit of further insights from your analysis. You can use the markers and the filters to then hone in and see, okay, let me have a look at all of the, whatever it is, client stuff, therapist stuff, everything that I've labeled as secondary. Is it all secondary? Everything in the movement channel. All right, the media controls, again, what we had over here. So I showed you about slowing down and speeding up the video. We haven't worked with speeding up the video. I do one way of training your audio perception to actually process things quicker is you can play the video double time out loud. Let me just do this now. Okay, so maybe let me rather go to this one over here. I'm just having an awareness of confidentiality. So that moment over there where you have the audio going a lot quicker, you need to really train your audio to process, your audio perception to process things quicker. So you could use the speeding up to an example, training your audio, like speeding up the processing speed of your audio perception. Another way that I've heard people use it is in group processes. You can actually find movement edges in the group when there's like a sudden and rapid change in the contextual, like the relationship space between where people are located in the room. That's another area where you can use for speeding up the video. All right, so media controls, training cognitive skills. All right, so I went over that just as an example, having a look at how you can really train your visual and auditory perception and skills with that, and then training your overall process work skills. And I'm going to go into this a little bit more. We actually have a thematic dashboard. So in this example over here, all right, I've got an individual work dashboard. And this dashboard is very generic. It's overall process work. I've added a paralanguage one in here. But if I was studying dream work, I could change all of these tags specifically for dream work. So I could bring in symbolism. I could bring in ghost roles and figures. I mean, that could also be brought in otherwise into other dashboards. You could also have a dashboard for group process. So having a look at hotspots, cool spots, relationship work. Again, hotspots, cool spots, escalation, de-escalation. You can have a dashboard entirely focused on intervention. So I'm just taking a moment here. I'm going to my dashboards that I already have, and I have quite a few, but I've got one focused on intervention. So if I add that in, so here's my interventions dashboard where I've got different kind of interventions, deepen, curiosity, role play, etc. So you can.
Paula.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm Paula.
Paula.
Okay, I'm a little bit slow in this moment. I cannot understand how you did this trick. How can you add the second dashboard? So how we do that, because I feel myself always obliged with the dashboard I choose, and I cannot find command to swap to the second dashboard that you're using.
Right. Okay. So yeah, let me quickly go into that. So the first way, so I'm just going here into this menu in the top right corner,
Yeah.
and I'm going to click over here. This is where I've got my dashboards. I created my dashboards and my markers. So I'm quickly going there. Let me just highlight one over here. So just to see what you're seeing over here, this top area over here is my dashboard. This over here is all the different tags I have. Now, I've created many different dashboards. And when you go over here and you click on your dashboards, you can add in new dashboards. You can create new ones. So I've got language signals. I've got one I use for bookmarking, IQs, interventions, micro expression. This one is simple, focusing on primary and secondary, so double signal edges, whatever it is. So the first thing you want to do is you want to create the additional dashboards that you want to work with. And this is where you would go. So again, you go over here, you click on dashboards, and it takes you to this page where you've got your dashboards. If you wanted to do your markers, you would go over here to markers, but I'm not going to go there now just to avoid confusing things. And then, so coming back over here, so back to my video over here, all right. If I go into the top left corner over here, project settings, okay, I can drop that down and I can see my dashboards, my markers, and if I've collaborated with anyone. So I click on my dashboards here, and this is, again, it's a list of my already created dashboards. And then I can just simply add dashboards by selecting them over here or take them away from this specific video.
Oh, brilliant.
Okay, so there we go.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, pleasure. All right, anyone else have any questions on that? Let me take out IQ.
From that menu, from what you're looking at right now,
yes.
How do you create a new one?
Okay, so the creation is going to the dashboard editor over here. Okay, let me do a sample. I'm going to create a new dashboard over here.
Oh, I can see it now. Thank you.
And then I can just put over here sample, and then I can add tags that I already have. I just drag them up, or I can create a new tag. Whoops. I can give it a color, and then I can just drag it up. And there we go, I've got that new dashboard, and saving is done automatically. So now, what is it called? It's called sample. If I go back over here, I go to my dashboards, I should, there we go, there's the sample dashboard, and I just click on it there, and there we go. Hello world. So that's how you would do it. Okay, I'm having an awareness of time again. So it's we've got 15 minutes, and I do want to make sure we get through these other things. So training process work skills. So we've got our thematic dashboards. You saw the thematic markers and how to filter things. All right, going on to sort of switching now, a process-oriented approach to video study and analysis. And what I'm going to talk about here is how we as process workers want to focus, like have a look at video analysis. And it's similar to how we're having a look at a session that we work at. So process work is super subjective in that whatever we as a therapist or facilitator find interesting and intriguing, it's important to us as a student researcher, and it's an important doorway into using our curiosity to unfold and deepen into parts of ourselves and what we are seeing. It's like dream doors that we can use. So the one thing is really having a look at what is interesting and intriguing me in the moment, both in the session, but also in my learning and growth as a process worker. And then having a look at interventions. Interventions all need to be taken into context. And although there are definitely some interventions that you can say are wrong, you also want to have a look at interventions in the context of the whole session. Okay, so, what has the hypothesis been? What is primary, secondary? How was that intervention relevant in that moment? And then also in the context of the client therapist or facilitator group relationship. So having a look at shared edges, long-term processes, long-term patterns of a client or even a group. So having a look, when you're studying your interventions, keeping those things in mind, that yes, sometimes there is a right and the wrong, but you really need to look at it in the context of the whole session, your personal growth, your client's growth, and the relationship between you. Oh, that's a whole new fade that came in over there. So this specific area, we've got now focusing on specific skills, cognitive skills, process work skills, and how you can work with those. If you're having a look at studying a whole session, okay, what you might want to do is start by watching the video and just noting what is interesting to you and what is curious to you, okay? After that, focusing on the first 5 minutes can be a world of itself. You could start and begin your analysis just there. What you want to identify, you're trying to figure out process structure. So in the first 5 minutes, identifying the primary, the secondary, the edge, the channel structure. You really want to focus on language. Okay, I mentioned earlier with language, having a look at, the pronouns, the verbs, how things are then said, the paralanguage that goes with it, and then adding in, your movement, the body language, the signals, the eye cues, having a look at what ghost roles and figures come up, if there are any dreaming processes that happen in those first 5 minutes, and then clustering all of these patterns and signals. How do they all fit together? Let me just have a look at my notes over here. This is important stuff. So I've gone over, your nouns, what people and places, the ghost figures and roles that are present, the verbs which can shed light on channels, pronouns like I and me indicating primary, other people, third parties indicating secondary. So having a look that, I'm focusing on language because it's one area which can be marginalized when we're studying, and it can also be super helpful in identifying what is actually happening in those first 5 minutes, and then bringing in signals and paralanguage, movement, body language, and clustering everything together. And the clustering would happen both in terms of what is present, but also, again, the long-term patterns, any cultural patterns or stories that are present for the person, behavior patterns. So behavior patterns that may be common to that person or to a group of people, for instance. So you watch the video, you get your interest, you have a look at the first 5 minutes and establishing your process structure and hypotheses, and then having a look at your interventions. Do they go along with the hypotheses? Do your interventions make sense? And one thing you want to have a look at is just going back to the process structure and hypotheses. You might find that in the session, you had one hypothesis and you based your interventions on that hypothesis, but now having studied the video, you get a different hypothesis. So you might want to have a look at think about what different kind of interventions you would have made. Also studying the feedback to your interventions. Are you noticing negative feedback? What are you doing to test your hypotheses? How are you feeling the water? What kind of interventions are you making? All right, another thing that you can have a look at. So those 3 things, that's one way of having a look at an overall session. You then, especially if you're busy training for your for exams, but not only that, you want to have a look at the different phases of the session. So what is alive and happening for the person? Okay, so you get a context of what is happening with them. You create a process structure and a hypothesis. You then have your interventions and you deepen into what you are seeing. You then retrieve an insight, hopefully. There might not be an insight, but hopefully there is an insight that you're bringing back to the clients after deepening and unfolding something. And then there's a moment of integration. So are you covering all of these bases? Is a question that you will want to ask yourself. And again, training for exams, but predominantly training for exams, you're probably going to want to be touching on each of these things because it's going to be important in your discussion with your examiner.
Paula?
Yes.
Yeah, hi, Nathaniel here. I was just thinking when you were talking about going over a session and having a different analysis of it, or thinking of different interventions that you could have done.
Yeah.
I wonder if that would be an interesting dashboard to have proposed new interventions, and then have a supervisor be able to see that or and review that as a whole separate dashboard.
Yeah, Nathaniel, that's great. So everyone, just for your awareness, Nathaniel is my business partner. He's also a fellow process work diplomat and working with me, helping me in developing the app. Nathaniel, I think that's a great idea. And I'm wondering, one way, I like that idea of having a second dashboard of interventions that you would have made, but then also maybe using the markers so that you can have actual interventions and then proposed interventions, perhaps. So then you can filter, like, here are my interventions, but this is what I actually, after having a look at the video, thought of doing this. And then your supervisor can come in and see your thinking, which is awesome. It's a whole area that we don't have time to cover in this webinar, is how to help your supervisor have a look at your analysis and how you can structure your analysis for them. And as supervisors, what you can work with in your students and request from your students in how they share and how they analyze with you. All right, let me go on to this next slide. All right, so we had phases of the session. And then finally, after having a look at all of that, so you've analyzed your video, you've written down thoughts, reflection, taken notes, another process of reviewing and deepening into how you're knowing and really helping to create interconnectedness in your working memory and your long-term memory is to really reflect on the session by asking different kind of questions. What are my feelings and reactions that come up as I watch this? And for the first while, it might be processing your own edges to seeing yourself. That might be a first thing that comes up, and maybe that's somehow related into how you're analyzing, but also what comes up in the session because you're being video recorded. Where am I being dreamt up, or am I being dreamt up? What are the dreaming processes in each moment? Where does my process overlap with theirs? What remains unknown and mysterious to me? Did I follow what I was curious about when I watched the video while I was actually the therapist or the group facilitator in that moment? Or did I not follow it? And maybe there's an edge over there. What is unknown and mysterious to the clients or the group? Have I explored the unknown, or am I making assumptions about things? So those first 5 minutes in getting a context, do I really have a good feel for what is alive for the client? Can I really feel it? What is this? What do I need to know more about? Do I have a full enough picture to dream into their process? So these are just some questions to help you reflect on things and help you deepen your understanding and the way you're getting into your own learning process and the clients. And again, I'm repeating this because it's crucial, how you then training your cognitive, your thinking processes. Process work is it's complex, and training our thinking processes to encompass and hold all of these things take time, and reflecting helps with this. Reflecting helps transfer things to our long-term memory and helps us connect different things that have happened in different places. You will have noticed in, I shared this earlier in this video over here, there's this notes area. In this case, I've just added information about the video. But what you can also do for a personal session is you can write down your thoughts. And again, this could be good for sharing with your supervisor, but you can write down your thoughts, your responses to all of these questions so that you have it down as something to use. So before I open to some final questions, and I know that we're very tight on time, I just want you to say something about following your creative flow or your intuitive flow. So we've worked so far with structuring your approach using different kinds of dashboards. But for some of us, having that structure is not what we want, or we're in a process where we want to discard structure and see what comes up for us naturally with our intuitive way of seeing things, just being in the flow with the session and with analysis. And you can do this by, okay, I'm going to take out all of my dashboards over here. So let's see, we have one more over here. All right, so no more dashboards. All right, I don't have any dashboards over here. And let me just play this and put that down. So what I have left here is this little box over here for making a note of it. And the making a note of it, it works in the same way as the tags. So I'm doing something over here, and I'm actually going to, hello. Okay, so you noticed as soon as I started typing, this is the first thing, the video paused. So I see something and I want to add a note on it. And super cool, the video pauses, so I don't have to worry about the video continuing and then I get lost. So, hello, process, work, world. And then I hit the submit button and it comes up as a note over here. And here it says, hello, process, work, world. And my note is there. And again, it's got a timestamp. So it works just like our dashboard tags, but it comes up as a note, and then you can add in fancy title. And you can also mark each moment. So this is a way of working with your more intuitive flow, your more creative flow, where you don't want structure, you just want to have moments, label them, and then maybe come back later and add structure to them. And the way you would come back later, so this is a note, okay, that's the kind it is, and say, okay, this note's over here, let's go back to that moment over there, and there was some laughing. So maybe there's, oh, wait, we have to add a dashboard first. So go back over here, adding a dashboard. So now I'm done with the flow of consciousness way of doing things, and I now want to categorize my notes, and I can say, okay, here is a dream door, or maybe there's a double signal, there's something in that giggling, and there we go, now it's a double signal and it's got the right color coding. Okay, so I've covered quite a bit. I would like to open, I'm aware that we are late on time, and I appreciate that some of you may need to head off, but I am available and want to stay longer for any of you who do have questions or comments that you'd like to bring in.
Okay, I'll just jump in. It's Sue here again.
Hey, Sue.
Just wanted to ask, with the video, does it need a particular quality of video to be effective? Or can you just use your smartphone, say, and record on that and then download that? Or is there...
Yeah, okay.
Is this about the video that you use that's important to know about?
Yeah, so that's a great question. You don't have to have your super high definition video. I would recommend around about 720. So you can set your phone camera, and you can use your phone. People have used their phones and used their laptops to do recordings. So setting it on about 720 quality is usually good enough. what that also helps with it ensures that the video isn't so big that it takes ages to upload it. Okay, so that's another part of it. The one thing that you do want to have an awareness, though, is to make sure that the audio, the phone, maybe you want to attach an external mic and play around with that, but making sure that you can also get the audio in, whether it's a laptop or a phone. And I can also send more information on this, more details on this.
Okay, great.
Could I say
Thank
something,
you.
Paolo, just about the recording? Sarah, I used a video camera, and thank you for your help with that, because basically it was far too huge a file, and I was trying to upload it, and it kept on failing. But what I now also doing is I'm using the video camera, and I do a little bit of cutting. I cut off because I'm recording the whole session. I cut off the unnecessary bits, edit it, and trim it down before I upload it, and that obviously reduces the size too, which is really helpful.
Great, yeah. Thank you for adding that. You can also, I can share some links for you with you for compressing really big files, so that you can do the recording and then compress it.
That would be helpful.
It's Caroline again.
Hey, Caroline.
Can you record straight into DreamMaker like you might into something like Photo Booth?
Not at the moment. We have got it on our feature list as something to add in, so that you actually record and it uploads it at the same time. But it's not possible at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I wanted to, it's Sue here again, sorry, I just wanted to check. I saw there was a button for collaborate.
Yes.
In terms of sharing the work
Yes.
with a supervisor. Is that easy to set up? I imagine it is, but I wasn't quite sure how that works.
Yeah. So the way you would go about it, again, I'm going to the project settings menu, and you just simply click on collaborate, and you put in your supervisor's email address. And if it's more than one, you can just do it comma separated. So if I wanted to share this with Nathaniel in the moment, I would just type in and I hit invite. Oh, this is an alert because I've got this video marked incidental. It just ensures I'm sharing it with someone I want to share it with. And I thanks to Peter for requesting that, or mentioning that you may accidentally invite people you don't want to invite. And there we go, it's done. So Nathaniel has now been invited. And then they'll be able to, they sign into their account and they access the video from within their account, and they can see all your analysis with your name, and they can make replies, and the replies will come from them with their name.
Brilliant.
I have a couple of questions, Paola. Is it possible to edit the length of time of the video in DreamMaker?
No, currently that's not possible. Again, it's a feature that we're thinking about adding. I'm also thinking about adding the ability to export, these moments, so adjusting the start time and the end time of each moment, and then export it as a separate video. But currently it doesn't exist. I'll add it to the feature. I'll upvote it in the feature list, Peter.
Thank you. And the second question is, the confidential is new to me. Is there a particular button? I haven't seen it before.
Yeah, so the confidentiality is new. I'm just going to go back over here. So you'll see in these videos over here, let me just highlight this one over here. There's a lock and this privacy guard. So the privacy guard is, it just double checks and highlights a video as confidential and checks before you share it. So I can remove it, and you add it with ease just by clicking on it. And locking it is another new thing where you can actually lock it so that you can no longer make analysis on the video. So I can still view the video and I can see things that are happening, but I can no longer add analysis to it. It's one way of just, if you're a teacher and you want to do, a collaborative peer learning space, or you don't want to change the video yourself, you want to open and then close.
Well, thank you.
Sure. Anyone else there? with questions.
Paola, this is Gianfrancesco.
Hey, hello.
Yeah, so my question is, I understand you want to let the creativity of the student to add different dashboards and different tags. But I also find very, rich the work you have done with all the sub-channels for each channel.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, why wouldn't you let it be as part of this app?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Okay, so let me repeat it. So I see, we have channels and sub-channels.
Yeah.
So I see that some of these sub-channels are already part of your private way of studying. Yeah.
When you say sub-channels, what do you mean?
For example, the proprioceptive channel would be temperature or weight or things like that.
Okay.
And I would say, I think it would be interesting to maybe have them also in the tags.
Right. So you're saying instead of having, for instance, channels over here, is to maybe have channels over here in a dashboard?
Yeah.
Am I correct? I think that that's definitely one way of doing it. The reason that I've done it this way is when I think about it, and specifically in this case where I'm doing a generic study, is that each moment in the video, I can identify each event tag will have a channel, each one will have a primary or a secondary, each one will have a level of reality, each one will belong to the client or the facilitator. So for this case, it helps me organize and filter my data. But if I was focusing my study on channels, so I'm specifically interested in studying channels and studying sub-channels, then yes, I would create a dashboard for that, so that I can go in and just study them.
Okay, yeah, so you leave it, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paola.
Pleasure.
It's amazing, this program.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So I want to thank everyone. Sorry, was there one more question there?
No, it was a big thank you, Paola. We really thank you so much for your time, and this Nathaniel as well for this great work that is making easier life, and for your explanations. I know you, it's really amazing. And I know you haven't asked for money. This is a free webinar, but I think it would be worth to, if we can. I personally would like to make an offer, little symbolic, but would be nice if it's okay for you, because you dedicate so much.
Paola, thank you. It's a privilege to share this with everyone, and I'm so excited about what the app can do for us and how it can enrich our training. So it's good to share it with everyone, and I know that it's very new. It's a new way of thinking about video analysis. If people can, follow us on Twitter, if you can tell your friends about the app, if you can share the app with people, all of that helps.
Thank you.
It's really helping us get it out there.
Yeah. Okay, we'll do that for sure. It's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
I can only reiterate that, Paola. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank
you
so much, Paola. Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, hooray! I think our voice doesn't match with the enthusiasm I feel for this great job. I'm sorry. I need to say, wow, that's amazing.
I agree.
You are great.
Fantastic.
You are both great, marvelous. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nathaniel, too.
Yes, exactly. Both of you. Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm sitting here with a big smile. It's lovely to hear all your voices and all of your gratitude and appreciation. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Have a lovely day. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye. Ciao.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.